This video is on simplifying fractions, that is, taking fractions and turning them into the most reduced form they can be. Sometimes it's called reducing fractions. So to start with, just you probably recognize that if you have a fraction like 1/2, right, that's the same as 2/4, that's the same as 5/10, right? They're all the same, essentially the same fraction. And the question is, this fraction is in the most reduced form. And let's talk about what that means. So let's take 5/10 for an example. So if you look at 5/10, right, the numerator is 5 and the denominator is 10. And there is a factor, right, remember from factoring, from the last thing we did, there is a factor that is a factor of both 5 and 10, and that's 5, which means I can divide both the numerator and denominator by 5. Since there's a common factor to both 5 and 10, both the numerator and denominator, 5/10 is not in the lowest form. So I'm going to divide by 5 on the numerator and 5 on the denominator. And sometimes you'll see this number that I'm dividing by, 5/5, that's just 1, right? Any number divided by itself is 1. So sometimes this is called a form of 1 or a foo. That's called a foo. Foo stands for form of 1. I'll just write that here, form of 1. Right? And as long as you're multiplying and dividing by a form of 1, you're not changing the value of what you're multiplying and dividing, because when you multiply or divide by 1, you get 1, right? You get the same thing you started with. So if I take 5/10, if I take 5 and divide it by 5, I get 1. And if I take 10 and divide it by 5, I get 2. So that shows how we now have this fraction, 5/10, is in its lowest form, 1/2. So let's take a fraction like, 3/5. Okay, both 3 and 5 are prime. There is no common factor to 3 and 5, so 3/5 already is in lowest terms. Let's take something like 4/9. Again, there's no, even though in the first case, this case 3 and 5 were prime, 3 has no factors other than 3 or 5. In this case, 4 has a factor which is 2, 9 has a factor which is 3, but that's not the same. We can't divide both 4 and 9 by the same thing. So 4/9 is also in lowest form. So let's take a more interesting one than 5/10, one that you might or might not recognize what it is, like 12/16. So you want to start by dividing by common factors. Now you could try to find, a lot of people talk about finding the greatest common factor, and that's sort of the fastest way to get you to where you want to go. But you can just look for any common factor, and it should be pretty obvious that since both 12 and 16 are even, they have a common factor of 2. So we can divide by the form of 1, which is 2/2, and I'm just going to draw a little form of 1 there just to show that we're dividing by 1, so we're not changing the value. So now 12 divided by 2 is 6, 16 divided by 2 is 8. But if we inspect this, we can see 6 and 8 both have a common factor, again, since they're both even, which is 2. So I'm going to divide both 6 and 8 by 2, so 2/2, form of 1, draw it in as a form of 1. And now 6 divided by 2 is 3, 8 divided by 2 is 4, and so since that is now, there's no common factor to 3 and 4, this is now the lowest term, or in the most reduced, or the most simplified of 12/16. So 12/16 in its simplest form is 3/4. So we can try a different one. Let's try one that might be a little bit trickier. Let's try, actually, before I do that, let me just show you that we could have taken 12/16 and found a larger common factor. It turns out that 4 is a larger common factor, so we could divide by 4/4. And now in just one step, since 4 is actually the biggest common factor, or the greatest common factor, 12 divided by 4 is 3, 16 divided by 4 is 4, and we get 3/4 just in one step, whereas here we needed 2 steps to do it. All right, so let's take a look at another one just to play with it. So 27 over 45. Okay, neither of these numbers is even, so we can't divide by 2. So let's try 3. We have the divisibility rule for 3, which means we add up the digits and see if what we get can be divided by 3. So 2 plus 7 is 9. 4 plus 5 is 9. So both 27 and 45 are both divisible by 3. And let's just do that. So divide by the form of 1, 3 over 3. And you don't have to draw the form of 1 in, but I find it's really useful to remind myself that I'm dividing by 1. So 27 divided by 3 is 9. 45 divided by 3, let's see, is 15, right? 15 times 2 is 30, plus another 15 is 45. So this is 15. And you might notice that, once again, we can divide both 9 and 15 by 3. So we're going to do another step, because there's still another common factor, 3 over 3. Draw the form of 1, and we get 3 over 5. So the reduced or simplified form of 27 over 45 is 3 over 5. Now you might have noticed when we started that both 27 and 45, 2 plus 7 is 9, 4 plus 5 is 9, so using the divisibility rule we could have used 9. Let's just see that that works. So 27 over 45, where you might just know that 9 is a factor of both of them. This is where knowing your math facts becomes really, really useful. So if you don't know your math facts, this is hard. So it's probably worth taking a step back and spending some time studying math facts, since there's lots of things on the web that will help you practice that. So 27 divided by 9 is 3. 45 divided by 9 is 5. So in one step, we got to 3/5. Slightly harder, maybe, would be 119 over 187. So it's not clear that there are common factors to 119 and 187. It's not even, so I can't use 2. If I add 1 plus 1 plus 9, I get 11, so it's not divisible by 3 or 9. It doesn't end with a 5 or 0, so it's not divisible by 5 or 10. And then it's not even, so it's not divisible by 4 or 8. So there's no obvious divisibility rule, so we just have to try another number. So we try 2, 3, not 5. We can try 7. So 119 divided by 7. So 7 goes into 11 one time. 1 times 7 is 7. You get 4, bring down the 9, 7 goes into 49, 7. Okay, so you can divide 119 by 7. Can we divide 187 by 7? So let's try that. Let's hope so. Okay, 7 goes into 18 2 times. 2 times 7 is 14. Subtract, you get 4, bring down the 7. 7 doesn't go into 47. So 7 is not a common factor. We already tried 9. 11 might be a useful thing, but I happen to know that 11 times 11 is 121. Again, knowing math facts is really useful, makes things easier. So it's not going to be 11, because 11 times 11 is 121, and that's clearly not 11 away from 119 is not 11 away from that. So we could try 13. Again, we're going to have to just do long division, sadly. So 119 divided by 13. Doesn't go into 11, so let's take a guess, say 8. Well, 8 times 3 is 24, so that doesn't work. 9 times 3 is 27, that doesn't work. 7 times 3 is 21, that doesn't work, so it's not 13. Psi, let's try 17. So 119 divided by 17. Oh, actually, we didn't even have to do this. We know that 17 is a factor, because when we divided 119 by 7, we got 17. Nice. So we can divide both we know we can divide 119 by 17. Let's see if we can divide 187 by 17. 187 by 17. So 17 goes into 18 once. Subtract, you get 1. Bring down the 7. 7 goes into 17 once. Nice. Goes in 11 times. So now we know that if we divide both the top and bottom by 17, we get 7 on top, because over here 119 divided by 7 is 17, so 119 divided by 17 has to be 7. And on the bottom, we get 11, because 187 divided by 17 is 11. So this was harder, but it's still doable. Sometimes you can use if your teacher lets you use a calculator, then you don't have to do the division. You can do the division using a calculator, and that makes things faster. So just to remind you guys, right, if you can divide by a common factor, you can reduce. Sometimes that's easy. This one was easy. You can do it more than once, right? I divided by 2 twice to get down to 3/4. This one isn't too hard. 27 over 45 gives me 3/5. And then this one was a little bit harder. I had to figure out that 17 was the common factor.